We now go live to a very angry caller who is convinced that A.J. Brown hates the Philadelphia Eagles.
Hey, so I have to say I've been really upset, since yesterday's game. I don't know if anybody saw this or not, but apparently A.J. Brown hates the Philadelphia Eagles. I was talking to my buddy. We were out in M-Lot, and we were talking about the fact, A.J. Brown, he might have like 8 targets on average over the last few years as a Philadelphia Eagle, and he won a Super Bowl, and he's been an All-Pro and does a lot of winning, but he's probably upset because he had 9 targets or something on Sunday, and I was thinking about it. He was like, there's a lot of underneath routes, and Jalen missed him on 2 deep balls. So obviously A.J. Brown hates being a Philadelphia Eagle, and then he went to Twitter. So I actually made a visual that you cannot see on the radio right now, but I can promise you it's here. It says, A.J. Brown hates the Eagles. And as you had on your board, it says, doesn't like winning. Because, I can't handle a guy like A.J. Brown in this city who just hates playing for the Philadelphia. He hates winning. He clearly hates winning. I mean, what does he do? The Philadelphia Eagles, they beat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and it wasn't a great victory, they didn't have a lot of offense in the second half, and he didn't really get up with a lot of great stats at the end of the game. But isn't winning the goal? Isn't winning the goal? Kevin Patullo is out there calling good plays. We had Saquon Barkley going a little bit. Jahan Dotson's making some plays. Devontae Smith. And A.J. Brown selfishly goes out and puts some stuff out on Twitter. And I think it's time to trade A.J. Brown. I think actually the best idea that any of us can put together is let's trade the number 1 wide receiver on the team that is undefeated after winning a Super Bowl. Let's just keep that going. Let's trade him because obviously he's toxic and doesn't want to be here despite the fact that he's gone out multiple times publicly saying that he doesn't want to be here. I think it's time to trade A.J. Brown. I think that it's really time to trade him because I'm a dumb fucking caller on Philadelphia Sports Radio. Now, welcome into the jungle. Let's get the show started the right way. Russ Joy Show. I'm Russ Joy. You figured that out because you're smart. It's also the name of the show. We're a little bit later today. What a mess. What a mess. I was excited on Sunday. I was excited in the first half of the game. I'm sure many of you were as well. And I knew damn well that once the Eagles went up double digits, they had a really strong lead going into halftime. I just knew the law of averages was going to dictate that the Eagles were going to eventually kind of fall off in the second half at some point. And we were inevitably going to somehow end up with a really weird takeaway from the game, probably that A.J. Brown was unhappy with his targets, his receptions, his stats in the game. And lo and behold, second half of the game, Eagles go into, here's your cross-sport reference of the day, the John Stevens methodology of trying to protect the lead, where they essentially clam up and do absolutely nothing of value in the second half offensively. Can't really get much going at all. And it feels like from about midway through the third quarter through the end of the game, the Eagles were just trying to hold on for dear life. Oh, and by the way, A.J. Brown doesn't finish with an eye-popping stat line. And so what do we have today? We had what the cold open of today's show is. Yes, video guy Amadeo is correct. He is back, by the way. He is correct. Yes, we have occasionally been mixing in the SNL-styled cold opening. And some of them are just as funny as SNL, which is to say, not funny at all. But I'm not surprised with where the conversation has gone. I did a very brief check-in on Sports Talk Radio today. John Marks is back on the radio waves over on 97.5 The Fanatic. I got to check out a little bit of his show. I was going back and forth between the stations a wee bit today. And I have to tell you, I am not surprised by some of the discourse out there. We have people, once again, vilifying A.J. Brown, making it seem like he hates his team, he hates the teammates, he hates the city, all this stuff. It's mostly nonsensical. I do think that there is something to be had in terms of a conversation around A.J. Brown and him likely being somewhat frustrated with the production so far this year. Maybe being frustrated with the offensive coordinator. Is he frustrated with the quarterback? I don't know.
I don't envision a scenario where A.J. Brown is going to request a trade. I don't envision a scenario where Jalen Hurts is going to go to Howie Roseman and say, this guy's a malcontent, get him off my team. So we're going to try to find a nice little middle area to kind of operate from today. And I want to try to be fair. I want to try to be balanced. And you, by all means, can join the conversation. I'll have the comments up here in the bottom right. There is already a flurry of comments that have come through over on YouTube, especially. If you're on the Russ Joy Show YouTube channel or the Joy Media YouTube channel, you can comment below in the live chat. If you're on Facebook, you can do the same. If you're on X, you have to click the video first, go into old Periscope mode, and then you can comment, and I'll bring it up on the screen. And here we go. So who's the first one that got in now? That's fair, says Connor Buss. I don't even know what he's talking about, but he was the first comment to come up there. But we have a lot, so we're going to get to as many as we can. I don't know if I'm going to open the phone lines today, but I do have somebody that's going to be hopping on the show at some point in the not too distant future here on the show to offer some thoughts and some reflections on the road. And we'll get to him in a little bit. Chris Fried, first of all. I'm going to go out to the comments, and then we'll get into the Eagles game. We've talked about Cristopher Sanchez's great season. We have John Tortorella quotes. Oh, yeah. John Tortorella had some interesting quotes last week that I totally missed. And oddly enough, they came out on my birthday. They were pretty much like a birthday gift wrapped for me, and I didn't even get to shout them out. Oh, and people are upset about Bad Bunny being the Super Bowl halftime performer. We'll get there a little bit later as well. Chris Fried asks, when will Russ Joy invite intern Andrew to discuss James Franklin and Penn State football on the Russ Joy Show? When intern Andrew is ready to admit that Penn State is a fraudulent team with an even more fraudulent head coach. That's when he'll be allowed to come on the show. Growing up as a kid, I cheered for Penn State. I had no real reason to, but I cheered for Penn State. I got off that bandwagon a very long time ago. I have enough suffering in my life by following 5 Philadelphia sports teams. I don't need any more. Though I will say, go Golden Rams. You know, whenever Westchester's football team's doing a good job, we're going to give them a shout. I have no idea how they're doing this season. It doesn't really matter. They're Division II, but we still love them anyway. James Franklin is a fraud of a head football coach, though. And I will get back on that soapbox at some point. But Penn State fans have to try to reconcile something for me. And it's very simple. You often hear, James Franklin is an incredible recruiter. And then you look at James Franklin's performance against top 15, top 10 teams over his tenure as the Penn State Nittany Lions football coach, and it is woeful to say the least. So the question is James Franklin a great recruiter who's just an underwhelming coach? Is James Franklin actually a good coach, but maybe his players that he's recruited are not as good as you thought? Is James Franklin a great recruiter and a good coach, but somebody along the way screws up? I don't know. I would say that he might be a good recruiter. It seems like he does get good talent that ends up getting drafted pretty highly in the NFL draft. And yet, when push comes to shove, when the rubber meets the road, Penn State can't ever seem to get it done. Loss to the Ducks, not a good one. Not a pretty one. But he'll survive because he's making way too much money for them to part ways. Chris also asks, how does Comcast naming a co-CEO today impact the Flyers and the new arena development? I have no idea how it's going to impact anything with the arena. For those who missed the news, and I will admit that prior to seeing Chris's comment a little bit ago, I had no idea that this happened either. Comcast announced Michael Cavanaugh is going to be a co-CEO alongside Brian Roberts. The speculation, the scuttlebutt, is that means he is essentially going to be the heir apparent to take over for Brian Roberts at some point at the top of Comcast, of NBC Universal. Make of that you will. I have no idea what to say about it. I do not know the man. I don't know what his ambition is. I don't know if he cares about hockey or if he cares about the Xfinity Mobile Arena. I couldn't begin to tell you. I'm sure at some point we'll start to hear some things. Hopefully he likes hockey, and hockey that won't have a good goalie in net, but might otherwise be somewhat fun to watch. Greg Bondarenko's here. Says, good afternoon, wrestling friends. Hello, Greg. He says, first time I heard someone discuss Bad Bunny, I thought it had to be some stripper name. Nope. Ford is here and critical. Says, this time feels rushed. Kids home soon, like a tornado blowing through, but Russ probably was busy at 2:30 and couldn't get the show done. Yeah. But yeah, this ain't ideal. Well, you know what? Ford, you don't have to be here, but you could be. Also says, aggressively disinterested in Bad Bunny as the halftime show. We'll get there in a little bit. JH here with a great point. Go Birds, fuck the Mets. We have to have a conversation really quickly about the Mets. You guys probably saw this clip going around, but oh my goodness. The Mets announcers were in their feelings on Sunday. Because as we all know, the Mets got bounced from the postseason contention. They finished 0-67. Oh, wait, no, hold on. That can't be right. It is right. They finished 0-67 this season when trailing after 8 innings. They were the only team to not have a comeback win. I'm also going to pull up for you really quickly because this graphic was bananagrams. Like if you thought that the Mets season after like the first 70-something games was insane, take a goosey gander at this and then think about how Philly would react if this were the case. These are all games that the Mets were in late in games. A 4-3 lead on the road, bottom of the ninth inning against the Nationals. 3-3 tied in the bottom of the ninth inning against the Giants. They have a 5-4 lead on the road against the Dodgers in the bottom of the ninth. 5-1 lead in San Diego in the top of the fifth. 3-2 lead at home with a runner on base in the bottom of the sixth. If you look at this on the whole, there are a lot of games here that are ninth inning. You have this one over here. Let me see if the mouse is showing up. Here we go. This one right over here. Mets against the Guardians, 5-5. Runners on second and third, 1 out, bottom of the ninth. They don't win that game. When you look at all of these losses that the Mets racked up this year, especially at times that they had a lead, had runners on base late in games, and then you keep in mind that they missed the playoffs by a single game, it is wild. But that wasn't the wildest thing to come out of the Mets yesterday because the Mets announcers were in their feelings. The Mets announcers were worked up and very upset about a few things that happened in this game. When the Mets made the final out, their commentary team said the agonizing 3.5-month deterioration of this team is finally complete. But that's not the thing that got people the most worked up. That's not the clip that was the funniest part. The funniest part is after the Marlins were the ones who eliminated the Mets from postseason contention. They go to the booth, they go to the Mets booth, and the Mets announcers are beside themselves because of the conduct of the Marlins after the game. Because remember, the Marlins aren't in the playoffs either. Listen to the Mets announcers.
I'm watching the Marlins. They just took a team picture in front of their dugout like they're going to the postseason.
Oh, this was their World Series.
Oh,
yep, they took 2 out of 3, knocked the Mets out of the postseason. We saw the Reds celebrating in Milwaukee.
So I just want to recap that for a second because I know it doesn't matter, but it is kind of funny. They are aggressively upset with the Marlins for taking a team picture after taking 2 of 3 in the series in what is effectively a meaningless series for the Marlins to eliminate the Mets from postseason contention, a division rival, and the Mets announcers are upset by it. And then you hear another Mets announcer chime in, oh, this is their World Series, eliminating the Mets from... No, I think everybody's happy the Mets are out. The Mets with a ridiculously bloated payroll, headlined by Juan Soto, who it never really seemed was that happy to be in a Mets uniform, who probably made a catastrophic error by not staying with the Yankees, and a team that was, at one point, the team with the best record in baseball through, I think it was about 75 games. They missed the playoffs. Insane. And everybody loves to see it, except for Mets fans. Andrew Fawcett's here with a good morning, a good day all. Let's see. Connor Buss weighs in on Bad Bunny really quick. Says it'll be a good live show just because it's not the same language. Doesn't mean you can't enjoy it. Let's see. King Alfred's U.S. descendant says Russ would have had a field day in 91 or 92 when Dykstra was injured early in the season with a wrist injury. Amaro filled in, had a great week, and fans called WIP wanting Dykstra traded. Yeah, we'll see. Let's see. We have this. Wow, the Bad Bunny stuff is kind of leading the comments right now. Very weird. Ford says it's a weird choice for a large repeal where the NFL goes off and but whatever, go Birds. There's an idea, bring the weekend back. We're going to see Vladar in net tonight, Fawcett says, so I guess we can all, I don't know, do we check out? Do we watch the game? I guess we'll probably end up watching the game. Now, the Eagles game that we do have to talk about here, it was uninspiring. But I'm having a real issue with people who are still bitching about the ways that Eagles win games. There is a thought out there that this is an unsustainable model, that the Eagles cannot have an entire half where the offense goes essentially cold, essentially folds. And I tend to agree. But there's a piece of this that people just don't seem to fully grasp yet. When you look at the Philadelphia Eagles from the league-wide perspective, what's the one thing that virtually every commentator has to say? It is the most talented team in football top to bottom. And what's the best part of having the most talented team in football from top to bottom? You don't always have the same people contributing week in and week out. You don't necessarily have a single person that when they are targeted by the opposing defense to be shut down, the entire offense sputters out. It's not the case here. Now, were there encouraging signs in the Eagles' win over the Bucs? Yes. There were some interior runs that Saquon Barkley was able to put together that maybe started to give you a little bit of hope. But make no mistake about it. Saquon Barkley's average yards per rush attempt are not great right now. But I don't think that it's a case where Saquon Barkley has lost a step or become a terrible football player. It does feel like there are some issues with that line. The guy that I'm like the most concerned with right now isn't Elaine Johnson, who missed time last week. I'm actually concerned with Landon Dickerson. And I'm concerned with Landon Dickerson because it's been a back injury that has been going on for months. And every time you watch Landon Dickerson walk off the field, he looks like he is in physical torment. And if you've ever had back pain, you probably understand why. And then you have to think, he's a massive human being slamming against other massive human beings. It is not for the weak or the faint of heart. I am worried about the Eagles' interior line. Obviously, Lane Johnson, Jordan Mailata, not a concern. Cam Jurgens, I'm not super concerned with. But you let Mekhi Becton walk, could have brought him back. The amount of money it would have cost in the term was absolutely something the Eagles could have done. They chose not to for whatever reason. And I do worry about Dickerson. And so then whenever there is a guy who comes out of this lineup and you get like a Matt Pryor in there, it doesn't exactly inspire a ton of confidence. And that leads to some timing being off in this offense. I think that what you're seeing right now is a much tougher ability or a greater inability to run block right now and to create those holes that Mekhi Becton was so great at creating. They're not getting those holes open up for Saquon Barkley right now. And these opposing defenses very clearly believe that if they're able to shut down that interior run, they'll effectively shut down the running game. And if they do that, they don't have to worry as much about the passing game. And right now, this Eagles team, thankfully, because they have the weapons that they do, they are able to overcome it. If Jalen Hurts weren't such a good dual-threat quarterback, I don't think you would be 4-0 right now. If Jalen Hurts didn't have the ability on both design runs and impromptu runs to pick up a first down, to get a big chunk yardage play, I'm not so sure that you'd be 4-0. If you didn't have guys of the caliber of A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith on the outside, I don't think this team would be 4-0. If you didn't have a guy like Dallas Goedert healthy is kind of in quotes, I don't think he'd be 4-0. But the sum of the parts still leads you to a position where you can win. Now, you don't always win the prettiest way. The first half against the Bucs, we'd say, for the most part, was kind of pretty. It had some good chunk yardage plays. It included some plays that made you feel like they were getting into a rhythm. So much so that you're watching Kevin Patullo and Nick Sirianni kind of do the bicep bump, the little intertwining of the elbows. You have the fake off of the tush push that goes to Saquon on the end around. He's wide open by 10, 15 yards. I think the closest player was about 10 yards away from him when he even got into the end zone. A nice little wrinkle to add to that play and put something in the back of the minds of defensive coordinators everywhere that, all right, maybe we can't just entirely stack the box. We might have to have somebody who's kind of playing a spy in case they decide to run outside. But the second half was truly concerning. And I would love to show up here on a Monday and tell you that everybody's an absolute moron for being worried. I am not hitting the panic button yet. But if the inability for this offense to really get anything in the passing game going in the second half is going to lead to your number one wide receiver going on Twitter after the game and putting some stuff up that's not exactly ideal, that's the concerning part. And I don't think that A.J. Brown is doing anything that is like above and beyond like a reasonable level of frustration. Like, I think A.J. Brown, just like any other player, is allowed to be frustrated if they want. I'll show you the two tweets that he put out, because he put one out almost as like a preemptive tweet, and then the second one was a little bit different. So here's the first tweet from A.J. Brown on Sunday. He posts this 5:10 p.m. After the game against the Bucs, after the Eagles start out 4-0. This is the tweet that A.J. Brown puts out first, which starts getting some people talking, thinking, wondering what is to come. So here's A.J. Brown's first tweet. He says, I love y'all with my heart. Oh, sorry. I love y'all with all my heart. And it is a heart emoji, but it's not the regular heart emoji. It's the one that's like kind of bandaged up, which gives you the impression that he's trying to tell you something might be coming that you're not going to love, or he really does maybe love his teammates. He loves the city. He loves the fans. But there is a frustration that he's about to air out. And so, okay, what does he ultimately put out? That tweet was at 5:10. This tweet comes out at 6:02. So just under an hour later after he puts that first tweet out, you get this one from A.J. Brown. And it is one that obviously got the football world talking. So you have a quote, if you're not welcomed, not listened to, quietly withdraw. Don't make a scene, shrug your shoulders, and be on your way. So obviously, as soon as he put that out, Eagles Twitter lost their mind. Eagles fans everywhere lost their mind. If you're not welcomed, not listened to, quietly withdraw, don't make a scene, shrug your shoulders, and be on your way. Now, one could make the argument, this is in a way making a scene. He's not going post-game in the locker room and getting the video and audio out there that could then go viral and take over an entire news cycle. That's not what happened here. But okay, if you're not welcomed, who does that refer to? Not listened to. Is that him trying to voice concerns to the quarterback? Is it him trying to voice concerns to the offensive coordinator, to the head coach? To whom is he trying to say something that is not being listened to? Quietly withdraw. Okay, so is the idea that he was vocal in his criticism, he was vocal in his beliefs, his thoughts, and now that things haven't really fundamentally changed for him? Yes, there were two deep throws to A.J. Brown, both of which were either overthrown or thrown out of bounds. Maybe he's upset with his quarterback there. Maybe he's upset with the offensive coordinator, whatever it is. Now he's going to quietly withdraw. He's going to still be a guy who's going to go out there and compete for you, but he's not going to be as involved potentially in trying to help this offense get better or try to help scheme ways to get himself and his teammates open. Like, I don't know. Don't make a scene. We already talked about that. Not exactly sure this is the desired outcome. Shrug your shoulders and be on your way. The be on your way is obviously the thing that got people talking, because then it's, all right, well, does A.J. Brown want to leave? Does A.J. Brown not want to play here? And remember, there was a lot of contrived bullshit last year on sports talk radio to make it sound like A.J. Brown doesn't want to be here. And then remember, he went on WIP and he tried to clear the air so that he loves playing here. I don't know where this stuff comes from. Now, we can have one of those wonderful moments where you say two things can be true, right? On a human level, I understand why A.J. Brown is upset. The stats aren't there. And we can all easily sit back and say, well, you're 4-0. You just won a Super Bowl. Isn't that what the ultimate goal is? And it is, but it isn't. Because if you remember, right after the Super Bowl win, like not long after, A.J. Brown went and put something out on Instagram. And I'm going to circle back to this one because this, in a way, kind of makes me think there's a little bit of credence to him being unhappy, not making a huge scene of it. Some are going to say it's a bigger scene than it needs to be. But this is an important bit of context because remember, we, the non-players, the non-NFL athletes, we are the ones who typically sit back and say, isn't winning the most important thing? This was A.J. Brown after the Super Bowl, kind of reflecting. Remember, Jalen Hurts said, winning the Super Bowl is great, but we're on to the next one. We're on to the next year. Devontae Smith essentially said the same thing. This was a thing that A.J. Brown put out on Instagram after the Super Bowl. Not like immediately, but pretty soon after. This is him on Instagram. After a few days, I've had time to reflect on being a champion. I tried to feel how everyone made it seem to be a champion. And unfortunately, it was short-lived. 2 days to be exact, LOL. I've never been a champion at the highest level before, but I thought my hard work would be justified by winning it all. It wasn't. My thrill for this game comes when I dominate. It's the hunt that does it for me. It's when the DB drops his head and surrenders because he can't F with me. The intense battles, early mornings, late nights, sacrifices. I love putting smiles on people's faces, don't get me wrong, but it just wasn't what I thought it would be. It's the journey I love the most. Back to work. Now, we can look at that two ways. If you want to be a cynic, you say, that means A.J. Brown values his individual stats over being a Super Bowl champion. That's one way to read it. Another way to read it would be he kind of just wants to get after it again, And maybe there was a frustration last year. We had the whole thing with the book. Maybe he thought that with another year, either under Kellen Moore's offense or somebody else running the offense, he was going to get to play a bigger role in it. He was going to get to go back and win another Super Bowl, and maybe it would feel more fulfilling. However you land on it, I think that it is fair if you are the Eagles that you go, all right, like we just took down a team that historically we have trouble beating in Tampa Bay. It's a big win. Yes, the second half of the game sucked, but we got the win. Why the fuck are you going on Twitter putting this stuff out? What's the benefit? Right? Like you could point to some other positives, right? Yeah, A.J. Brown might not be getting the touches he wants. Yeah, he might not be getting exactly what he wants. This season, the Eagles have made 11 trips to the red zone. They have scored 11 touchdowns. Yeah, A.J. Brown might not be getting his individual numbers, but the offense, for as weird and haphazard as it can be, is still getting the job done. So is the goal to win games or not? Is having an individual performance truly the goal, or is winning the goal? And I bring that up because one of the players that people perceive to be very immature happened to be one of the players who had the most mature response, not to A.J. Brown, but about winning and how the team has won, because to this point they've won ugly. You're not going to believe this, right? Just based on how the first game of the season played out. But the player who had the best answer to this, the idea of like having a good game about winning pretty versus winning ugly, the most mature answer I heard yesterday came from Jalen Carter. Let's go to Jalen Carter.
This was a little more anxiety-ridden than it needed to be at the end of the game, but the importance of getting this big win on the road, no matter what it looked like at the end of the game.
Oh, yeah, it's big. At the end of the day, I just said this in my head. I'd rather, have a bad game with a dub than have 6 sacks with a loss, So at the end of the day, you see everybody smile. They over there doing a shadow boxing, Saquon and them. It just smiles on people's faces. And that's what I'd rather have than, trying to just do solos out there. I'd rather play as a team and, we eat off each other.
There's a lot of great stuff in that quote. He notes a lot of smiles in the locker room. Said Saquon's over there shadowboxing, I think he said. Guys are happy after the win. And he says, I'd rather have a bad game with a dub, bad game with a win, than have 6 sacks with a loss. Now, would Jalen Carter feel that way if he goes an entire 17-game season without recording a sack or without having like a legitimate impact on a game? I'm not so sure, but it's the right quote to have in that moment. And I saw this quote, or this comment from AJ over on YouTube, says, if you're upset, go say that in the post-game press availability. I think that this is part of that whole thing that AJ Brown put out there, don't make a scene. If you're on social media, you know that he seems unhappy. You know that he seems like there's still something that he's not thrilled with. If he had gone out post-game and flamed Kevin Patullo or flamed Jalen Hurts or flamed Nick Sirianni, that is the kind of thing that would lead an entire news cycle, overshadow the team's win, not just on the local level, but the national level. It would have been a thing that would have potentially had really serious negative ramifications on that locker room as a whole, and it wouldn't have been worth it. If he goes out and he tweets something kind of passively, you kind of roll your eyes a little bit. You go, wow, like, is this really the priority? But it doesn't lead the news cycle quite the same way that having an incendiary comment would. We were all here when Terrell Owens was doing sit-ups in a driveway, right? We were all here when Drew Rosenhaus kept dropping the next question lines, right? You don't want that with A.J. Brown. Now, hopefully, whatever the issue is can be rectified, can be remedied, because make no mistake about it, this Eagles team is significantly better with A.J. Brown on it than off it. The real goal here, the real test, is can they figure out a way to smooth over whatever the real issue is? And if it's an individual stat thing, there isn't anything that this Eagles team, I think, can do right now, right away, guaranteed, to get him better quality touches, to get him more impactful plays in this offense. This offense kind of is what it is right now. Is there a way to scheme him open? Yeah, maybe. If Saquon starts gutting defenses again, which comes back to my concern about Dickerson and the interior line, if they're able to get Saquon doing gash plays again, where he's picking up 7-8 yards a carry, well then yeah, you're going to get A.J. Brown in more single coverage, and probably A.J. Brown's going to blow the top off the defense once or twice a game. He's going to get his stats, he's going to be happy, and ultimately it's going to pay dividends the same way that it did last year. But if you can't get that going, I don't know. Like Devontae Smith. Do we ever hear Devontae Smith complain? I'm not saying that everybody needs to be the same. I'm not saying I want all the athletes and all the players to be cookie cutter guys. That's not what I want. I want them to be able to express how they feel publicly. I want to have a better bit of insight into the mentality of the player. But I don't remember hearing Devontae Smith complain about a lack of touches. I don't remember Devontae Smith going out and tweeting things or putting things out on Instagram that make you think, oh shit, does he not want to be here? He hasn't done that. Now, everybody's different. I really like A.J. Brown. I really like the player. I think the human being seems like a good dude. I would like A.J. Brown to retire as a Philadelphia Eagle. I'd like to see A.J. Brown help this Eagles team win back-to-back Super Bowls, have a legitimate dynasty window open. Here's the worst thing he could do. If he is truly upset with his touches, if he is truly upset with his lack of stats, you can go get empty stats on a shitty team. And you already have the one Super Bowl ring. And if that's good enough for you, that's fine. But if there's a way to make it work here and to potentially win back-to-back or to be part of a dynasty, 3 titles in 4 years, 3 in 5 years, that's going to make you a Hall of Famer. Having that one Super Bowl ring and then getting moved to, I don't know, where's he going to go, Pittsburgh? Moving to a team with empty stats, is that going to do anything for a Hall of Fame case? He played in Tennessee, for God's sakes. He had good numbers in Tennessee. He wasn't happy there. He gets moved to the Eagles. He wins a Super Bowl. He's been a critical part of this offense. It hasn't worked out as well as I'm sure he wants, or Jalen Hurts wants, or the Eagles staff as a whole wants through 4 weeks. But they're 4-0, and there is still a legitimate chance of going back and winning another one. But then again, I don't know. I don't know what to make of any of it. Jim Cochran says, remind me of how AJ's complaining hurt them last year. Complain away, AJ, then go repeat. I think if you as a locker room, as a collective, are able to say, AJ's just going to be AJ, he's going to put some passive stuff out, but he is still a bona fide stud and we need him to win, which is where I'm assuming a lot of these guys probably are mentally right now, that's fine. I didn't intend on going this far into the AJ Brown of it all today. But it's like a somewhat fair criticism, I guess, to some extent. It's fair to wonder if this was the right way for him to go after a 4-0 start. I think he's well within his right to complain. And if he has complained internally and kept the spotlight off of his negative feelings about the situation, and now after 4 weeks, you're getting this kind of passive dig, then he's tried. He tried to go about it the right way. I will still defer to the player and say, it's all right. Figure it out. Joe Fisher over on YouTube says, the year we fell apart in the second, I think in the second half, we all blame the coaching staff, or was it some of the player egos clashing? It might be. I don't remember. It seemed like there was a lot of ego stuff. We did blame coaching. I think they've got a good locker room. I think they have a good leadership core. And I think that's able to kind of overcome some of the quasi-distraction stuff that's going on right now. So we got all that. It's a big win for the Eagles. You turn the page, and you hope that they're going to be able to kind of piece this thing together. Now, there's somebody who I know was trying to piece things together in the past week because he wasn't here, and he was not actively involved in what was going on with the show. But he was such a bona fide stud that he made sure to edit a whole bunch of stuff and schedule it out last week across all of our short-form content channels. And that is Video Guy Amadeo, who, by the way, made his way to a Buc-ee's, and we're going to welcome him onto the show. We're welcoming back Video Guy Amadeo. Amadeo, how are you?
Doing good. Yeah, still very tired from 15-hour drive the past couple days, but fighting through it and back to work. That's how we do it. We got to go right back to work.
How does it feel to have to come back to my show, to Snow the Goalie, to an announcement about radio stuff, to Broads? How you must just be feeling not overwhelmed at all.
Not shocked. That's. I was prepared to come back during an Eagles game, so I knew it was going to be large. That's
Were you prepared to come back to the controversy that you came back to?
No, it was not. I first half I was like, wow, I'm exhausted. I got home at like 5:30 in the morning, and I fell asleep for 6 hours. Woke up at 12:45. Eagles game, first half amazing. I was like, oh my God, they're doing this for me. An easy game where I don't distress. Nope. No.
Never.
No.
Let's go to something positive. The Phillies are going to the playoffs. The Mets have been eliminated. And we'd be remiss if on this show we didn't at least briefly discuss what an incredible season Cristopher Sanchez had. And the Phillies put this graphic out now that his regular season is over. Obviously, Kyle Schwarber led the National League in RBIs. Trey Turner came back. He led the National League in batting average. But Cristopher Sanchez is probably, I would argue, the story of the season. Because despite the fact that this team lost Zach Wheeler, you go into the playoffs feeling pretty damn good about the rotation because of how good Cristopher Sanchez has been this year. Take a look at the stats. 202 innings pitched, 212 strikeouts, a 2.50 ERA, 275 on-base percentage, 595 OPS, 1.06 whip, 22 quality starts, that stands out, an 8.0 WAR. If we look at this on the whole, I know that most people think that Paul Skeens is going to win the Cy Young. He probably will. There is a case to be made here that that is the wrong way to go because Skeens has been doing it in a no-pressure situation. Think about the difference in these pitchers and each and every start they have to make. Amadeo, when's the last time Paul Skeens had to make a start that had any postseason ramifications?
None. Absolutely none. And Paul Skeens is an incredible talent. He's playing for Pittsburgh, and he's not going to stay in Pittsburgh long term.
Correct. Skeens doesn't have the kind of postseason stress. He doesn't have the kind of pressure on him. And then if you want to take the normal pressure and then ratchet it up another level, it's really simple. The second that Zach Wheeler was lost for the season, and you knew that you were going to have to anchor the rotation with Sanchez, that pressure to perform went up a whole other level. There's nothing quite like it because he is going to be the ace of the staff in the playoffs. He has to be. If they're going to have any chance of winning a World Series, it's going to have to be largely on the back and the arm of Cristopher Sanchez.
And an interesting stat that I just looked up when you were talking about that, he's second in all of baseball in WAR behind Aaron Judge. He leads all of starting pitching in Major League Baseball in terms of WAR, and he's not going to win the Cy Young.
Here's a little heads up. If you wanted to compare end of regular season stats between Skeens and Sanchez, and you're going to see like they each lead different categories. I will argue that some of the ones that Sanchez leads or ended up leading at the end are more important. Let me go over here. There we go. So WAR, as you mentioned, higher with Sanchez, second in all of Major League Baseball. They had the same amount of games, same amount of starts. Sanchez throws, 15 and 2/3 innings longer, right? 3 more wins. I know a lot of people like to throw out wins and losses because of the overall value and the overall talent of the team. So if you want to do that, you can. ERA, sure, 1.97 versus 2.5. Hard to argue. ERA plus, strikeouts, pretty damn close. I mean, significantly close, right? Strikeout percentage, higher for Skeens. Walks, 2 fewer. We can make the argument that that could also just be by virtue of the sheer number of extra innings that Sanchez pitched. But when I look at this, you have to almost, I think if you're being fair, you almost have to take into consideration the team and the situation around the games. I know that the voters probably won't. They're going to just do a very simple goosey gander at the stats. They're going to see that Skeens leads in a bunch of the traditional categories you'd want to see him lead. But man, I don't know how you compare a no-pressure situation versus trying to win your division, trying to go down the stretch to maybe even have a chance at the best record in the National League, and your ace goes down. Like, I don't know, man. It just seems crazy to me.
It's the same argument, honest to God, going back to when it was Zach Wheeler and Corbin Burns going for the Cy Young. Yep. And what was it? Zach Wheeler had 200 plus innings. Corbin Burns had, I think, at least 50 less innings than Zach Wheeler. Corbin Burns ended up winning the Cy Young because he led in so many analytical categories. But here's Zach Wheeler with his dominant stuff finishing in second place. He 100% deserved to win that Cy Young. Not putting any flack on Corbin Burns because he's an amazing pitcher in his own right, but Zach Wheeler just completely deserved that Cy Young. Cristopher Sanchez deserves this Cy Young. Paul Skeens has a whole career ahead of him to win more Cy Youngs at this point. And Cristopher Sanchez, dude, he's the most valuable pitcher in baseball. You got to give him that award. But he's not going to because it's not the sexy pick.
We're going to do a really quick roundup here. all right, because we got to do rapid fire before the show ends because we are time limited today. When you found out that Bad Bunny was going to be the halftime performer, did you know who Bad Bunny was?
Yes.
Why did you know who Bad Bunny was?
I knew he was a singer, but I know you're trying to lead this into the wrestling thing. I know he's also a wrestler.
So I would not have known who Bad Bunny was prior to a few years ago. And then Bad Bunny did a street fight against Damian Priest in Puerto Rico on a WWE Premium Live event. And typically a celebrity who gets in the ring, it looks bad. It looks weird. It just isn't great. And he put on a hell of a performance. And I'm not going to play the entrance because it has his music and it'll absolutely get flagged and YouTube will shut my whole, show down. But you need to find the entrance of Bad Bunny in Puerto Rico with the entire crowd. I think it's like 50,000 people or maybe it's 40,000 people in this giant arena, all singing his song as he comes down the entranceway to take on Damian Priest. And so I know that there are a lot of people who don't like the idea of Bad Bunny as the halftime performer. The halftime performer is not necessarily for the football fan. It is not necessarily just for the American audience who would prefer a rock band to perform at halftime. Remember, Kendrick Lamar, there was a lot of pushback last year. But in the midst of what was going on, Kendrick Lamar ending up highlighting and headlining the halftime show worked out because of the beef with Drake. It is important to point out that Bad Bunny has the most streamed album ever. 20.6 billion streams. For a game that is trying to be global, for a game that goes down to Brazil now, for a league that has flirted with the idea of a team in Mexico City, for a team that has flirted with the idea of having a team in London, for a league that has games in Germany. They are trying to make football a global game. You know that the ratings are there in the U.S. That will never change. They are trying to expand into entirely different communities. Make no mistake about it. Bad Bunny, being the halftime performer, might not move the needle as much in the English-speaking demographic of the United States of America, but it will resonate in a big, big way. And for a league that also tends to get monetization on social media through impressions and clicks and views on their videos through sponsors, Bad Bunny is going to absolutely tear it up for the NFL on this halftime show. It's a total no-brainer, but I understand that there is a large contingent that's going to say, all right, well, if a lot of his songs are in Spanish and I don't understand the music, why would he be the halftime performer? The simple answer is because it's not necessarily just for you.
Exactly.
And you agree.
Exactly.
Last thing I wanted to get to is about John Tortorella. Young John. John Tortorella put out comments on my birthday, and I might dive more into this later on in the week. But Torts said one thing that drove me up a wall, and so I wanted to get your opinion on it because I know that some people think that I am somehow biased. He had a quote about the quote that he said where I don't want to, or I'm not interested in learning how to coach a team like this. And it was a post-game scrum. He was really frustrated. And he got fired, like shortly thereafter. There was the apparent blow-up between he and Cam York. He goes out and he does an interview with NHL.com. And in it, he talks about the fact that there were some disagreements with Danny Briere, specifically about the discipline of some players. And then it probably makes you think, all right, is that Cam York? Could that have been Sean Couturier? Who else did Torts want to discipline? Who did he have a disagreement about discipline with? But the thing that drove me up a wall is that he said that those quotes about not being interested in learning how to coach a team like that, blah, blah, blah. He said, quote, "Do I want to coach again? Yeah. I heard a couple NHL coaches accuse me of quitting on the team." That was the implied part. "Did I quit on the team after those comments I made in Toronto? I haven't quit on a bleeping thing in my life. Those comments were taken totally out of context." Amadeo, when a guy goes out post-game and says, "I'm not really interested in learning how to coach a team like this," How does that get taken out of context?
I have no clue, because I think the rational mind would say that, oh, he doesn't want to coach a rebuilding team. I'm just, how is someone supposed to not take that out of context?
I don't know how. I'm sure there is a way to take it out of context, but those were his own words. They were not coerced out of him. No one told him to say those words. He put them out there himself. And by the way, could have, in theory, clarified them through a team spokesman. I actually was told that John Tortorella, after those comments were made, and after it did incense some people in the organization, was told, you can go clarify those comments. Not the same night, not out to that same scrum, but perhaps some things should be clarified publicly, and he did not want to clarify those comments. Now, were the things I was told, were those 100% true? I don't know. Torts can certainly rebut them. But if he was given the option, if he was even told or maybe even mandated, go out, the next availability, clarify those comments, and explain that you have not given up on this team. You have not given up on this roster. It's just a frustration because this isn't the kind of team you're used to coaching. If he was given that option or given that mandate and he said no, then you can't come out months later and say, I was taken out of context. I don't think he was. I think he actually was, for the first time in a long time with that team, he was honest. He did not want to have to learn how to coach a team with 9 games left, how to go out and play hard in meaningless games. The year before, he was able to try to do that in an attempt to make a bullshit playoff run that everybody knew was not going to bear fruit. Last year, with 9 games left, there was no chance of the playoffs. And I think he was honest. And then he now tries to backtrack. Here's my question for you. Do you think we will see John Tortorella as the head coach of an NHL team ever again?
I think maybe. I'll say maybe. I don't want to say no. I do think him being coaching, what is he, assistant coach now with Team USA for the Olympics?
Yeah, he and Sully, right?
I think he'll probably get a run with maybe a team that's not necessarily like probably a team that's a playoff type team. Maybe that's probably where he'll want to go coach.
I think the only thing he could possibly look to do if he's going to be a head coach, he has to go take over a team that underperforms. That's why I said all offseason, I thought the team that made the most sense for him to go take over was Dallas. I really thought that there was a chance that Dallas would want to bring him in because they got rid of DeBoer, and I think that Dallas's team on the whole was a very talented one that underachieved, and Torts probably could have gotten them over the hump and made them a legitimate threat in the Western Conference. The fact that they did not go that route and the fact that we really didn't hear Torts' name involved with a lot of teams, to me, kind of gives you the idea that these coaches that he's talking about saying that he quit on the team and I haven't given up or I haven't quit on a thing in my life, I think that is kind of proof that that opinion of how the end of the Torts tenure in Philadelphia went, I think that that's actually kind of proof that that idea is permeating the league a lot more than he wants people to believe. Does it mean he's done for good? No. Do I think there will be a team that will underachieve, fire their coach, and bring him in? Yes. I think we will see Torts have one more run. If he were like a 55-year-old coach, it would be a no-brainer. At this point in his career, it's got to be the right opportunity. I don't think Torts is a bad coach. I just don't think Torts was the right coach here. The one thing that I will always thank John Tortorella for is making sure that he got Chuck Fletcher fired, because that gave us the opportunity to pull the nose up on what was essentially going to be a tailspin into mediocrity and once again an unintentional tank. So we will end today with a little bit of positivity, thanking John Tortorella for getting Chuck Fletcher fired. And on that, it is time to end. Amadeo, thank you for being here. Appreciate you as always. Ladies and gents, thank you for being here. If you were on YouTube, Facebook, X, you interacted in the comments section, which was up and down all throughout the show. I took it down again for something on the screen, but all of you who commented on the show throughout, I appreciate you. If you listen in the podcast feed after the fact on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, Pandora, wherever you get your podcasts, thank you to all of you as well. Don't forget, you can watch the show now on Spotify. I don't know why people do, but some people do. So if you have the Spotify app on your TV, on your smart device, on your phone, you can watch video episodes of the show as well, or you could just download the audio version. It is still there. I'll be back on Wednesday. Might have a guest on Wednesday. Not sure. We'll see. Could be. Perhaps. Who's to say? But until Wednesday, this has been the Russ Joy Show, and I've been Russ Joy, but you knew that already because you're smart and saw the name of the show. Thank you for joining me, and I will talk to all of you on Wednesday here on the Russ Joy Show. Bye now.